If you guys can remember, a couple of weeks ago I uploaded an experiment I created, which was using ChatGPT API to create an application that you can upload a document or a couple of documents into, and then then you can ask questions, and those questions would be only considering those documents that you uploaded as the universe of possible answers or training data. So what I did was I tested this with a text document, which is about the legitimate expenses that you can write off. And I took this document. It's called P535. So I show you guys. This is the document, business expenses. So this is actually a good document to test it with, because the real reason I created this is I wanted to have a queryable way of looking at this document, because it's kind of complicated and I just want to know what I can write off, right? So so I tested this out and it worked just fine. I don't want to run it. If you guys can look at the well, actually I ran it already. Probably I might have the output. I just don't want to run it because I might use up the API credits. Okay, I run it. This is what it looked like in the IDE. It basically goes through and uses the Assistant API, and there's a new API within the Assistant API called File Search, and that's the one that allows you to upload a file, and then it even has a functionality where you can upload video. Every time you ask a question, you can send more data to it. So this is like really cool, because it allows us to build applications that are very specific to what we want to investigate, right? So the question I asked: summarize what legitimate tax deductions are discussed in about 3 words each. And this is the answer list I got, right? So this is what the previous video was about. I'm not gonna go through that again. You guys can look at it if you want to. It's under Tax Expert in my video content library on YouTube. But let's look at what I did in addition to that, because this was a great experiment, but I really wanted to deploy this as a Lambda function. So the next step is to make it so that it can be called from somewhere, and then there are going to be steps afterwards to make the parameters of the questions and everything parameterizable, so that you can pass in the question. Right now it's a hard-coded question. This is the hard-coded question. The only problem I'm trying to solve this time is that I want to make sure this works in a Lambda function. So I tried a couple of things, and the problem is that this code depends on the openai package, Python package, and the openai Python package depends on a bunch of other packages. There's a description in the Amazon document, in the AWS documentation, that describes how you can go into your virtual environment, which is this, into lib, and find a package that you want to deploy into Lambda. So in my case, it's OpenAI. Look at what dependencies it has, and basically make sure those dependencies are copied in. So you have to create a zip file, and the zip file has to look like it has to have the Lambda function in the root, and it has to have all the dependencies, including the transitive dependencies. So that kind of puts a lot of burden on the developer, because now you have to know exactly the intricacies of how to make sure that everything is there. And it wasn't working, and the way you debug it is you can print out the search path, which is you get it from sys.path, and then it shows as var task being the first one that it looks at when it's looking for packages. It wasn't finding one of the sub packages that OpenAI was depending on. So I was thinking, okay, well, how about finding a way of doing this so that I would not be responsible knowing exactly what the dependencies are, but I just want to use PIP. So luckily, there's a way to do that, and the way you do that is don't deploy it as a zip, which is probably the more common way of deploying Python and JavaScript Lambda functions, but you can deploy it as a Docker file. And if you deploy it as a Docker file, what happens is you actually, when you create a Docker file, you actually do a pip install. So with requirements, if you look at requirements, it just lists OpenAI, right? It's just like when you do it from the command line, you just say pip install OpenAI, and then it figures out what else is needed, which is great, which is what I want. I don't want to be responsible for that, for the details and the transitive dependencies myself. So I tried it this route. I created a Docker file, and when you do that, you have to create a Docker repository in Amazon, and so you have to have Docker running on your local machine to build a repository and then push it to the Amazon repo, and then the Lambda function will get it from the Amazon repo. So let me show you guys how to do this. Right now, today I'm just gonna show that this works. So this is how you create the Docker file, and then there's a document which I will include at the end of this, which describes exactly how to create that Docker image. And then when you go into Amazon and you create a new Lambda function, so I say not here, but what you do when you use a container image, you pick container image, and then you say, let's say text expert expert 2, and then here you have to give it the image name that you created. So there's gonna be, I'm gonna create a separate video. Watch out for that video for how to create this Docker image. You specify that image here, and then you can just load the Lambda function from there. Then instead of code, the menu option here says image, and here you can deploy a new one if your code changes. And let's see, I can run a test. So test, and I can run a test. So it's running it. One thing to remember is very important, that you increase the timeout. So this is just doing brute force loading the document and asking ChatGPT to process the document, and then trying to answer the questions. This is a very hard-coded thing. I just wanted to make it work in a Lambda function on AWS. And the additional steps are going to be making sure that this works fast, because like I said, I had to expand the timeout. So if I look at the configuration, by the way, I can show that it worked fine. So that's my output. So this is the search pad that I print out. As you guys can see, the first places looking for the dependencies is var task, but luckily it's working fine. So it's working fine because when you use a Docker file, you really are just using PIP, and PIP makes sure that all the dependencies are there as they should be. And then this is the answer. So the legitimate task deductions discussed in the document are summarized as follows, and then it just lists them: reforestation, retired asset removal costs, barrier removal costs, startup or organizational costs, etc., etc., etc. So the point here is that it ran, it loaded the document, it loaded that one document, it did a search only in that document, so not on the internet, and it worked fine, and it is working in a Lambda function. So I will show you guys in a separate video how to create the Docker image for this in order to pull it in from the Amazon repository. But for now, for today, I just wanted to make sure that this is working, and it is working. If you want to, if you change the code, then what you need to do is you need to rebuild the Docker image, and you go to basically you go to image, and you say deploy new image, and here you just give it a new image. So that's it. If this content is helping you, if it's useful in any way, please subscribe, use your like power, and like this video. Also, if you have any questions, please ask in the comments below. I answer all questions.